Looking back now, I should have recognized that the job offer was a warning in itself. At 22, with bills piling up and my old pickup threatening to die every other morning, I wasn't in the position to ask questions. The posting was vague. Overnight. Associate needed at Mcdonald's rural store. Good pay. Meals included. No experience necessary. That last part should have raised a red flag. Nobody hires without experience unless there's something they don't want to explain in the interview. Still, I drove an hour past the last gas station, the headlights carving tunnels through endless rows of corn. The store appeared suddenly at the edge of a gravel lot, an old brick building with the glowing arches buzzing faintly above the door. Unlike the city McDonald's, this one looked more like a converted farmhouse, the siding peeling at the edges, the parking lot cracked with weeds pushing through. Inside, the air smelled of fryer oil, lemon cleaner, and something else, wet dirt, like an open cellar after rain. The manager, a woman named Loretta Pike, waited for me by the counter. She was tall with a stiff posture, her uniform pressed so sharp it looked like it could cut. Her smile was practiced but never reached her eyes. I noticed her hands trembled when she slid the paperwork across the counter. "You're young," she said. "Most don't last more than a week. But you might. You've got that stubborn look about you." I laughed nervously, pretending. I understood. Stubborn was good, right? She tapped her watch. "Shifts run from 11 p.m. sharp to 7 a.m. Day crew leaves at 10:45. You'll notice they don't hang around to chat. Don't take it personally. They know better than to linger." The way she said it made my stomach twist. I signed the paperwork anyway, every line blurring together. Rent money was rent money. Loretta handed me a folded piece of paper. "Read this later. Memorize it. Burn it if you're smart. And don't argue with the night crew. They've been here longer than me. Much longer." Before I could ask what she meant, the door swung open. 2 employees filed in without so much as a greeting. The first was a thin man with the color of ash in his skin and dark circles so deep they looked painted on. His name tag read Miles. He gave me a glance that lingered just a second too long, then went straight for the drive-through headset. The second, Sherry, looked maybe 30, but carried herself like she'd been doing this job for decades. Her hair was black, cut into a neat bob, and her voice was clipped when she said, "So this is the new one." Loretta nodded. "Show her the ropes." Sherry's grip on my arm was surprisingly strong as she pulled me toward the back hallway. "We don't have time for a tour, just rules. 8 of them. You follow them, you might live to see daylight. Ignore them, and you'll end up like the last kid." I tried to laugh, but the look she gave me, flat, serious, without a trace, of humor, killed it in my throat. "Rule 1, she said, pausing at a heavy iron-bound door near the walk-in freezer. "Never open the root cellar after dark, not even if you hear someone inside calling for help. Especially then." She marched me past the bathrooms. "Rule 2. If you hear knocking from the stalls, don't answer. Don't look under the doors. Don't speak. They want acknowledgement." Her grip tightened as we passed the front lobby. The fluorescent lights above flickered. "Rule 3. Lock the doors at exactly 2:27 a.m. Not a minute sooner. Not a minute later." We reached the fryer station. Rule 4. If someone comes through the drive-thru and orders something that isn't on the menu, you make it anyway. Don't question the ingredients. Miles will show you where they're kept. Rule 5, she added, glancing at Miles, who hadn't, looked away from the parking lot once. Always answer the first buzz on the headset. If you miss it, pray it wasn't meant for you. Rule 6. Never let anyone, customer, cop, delivery driver inside after closing the doors. No matter how normal they look, Rule 7. At least once a night, the fryer timer will ding even if it's empty. When it does, you must walk to the back and flip it off. If you don't, it keeps ringing. And then something else answers. Finally, her voice dropped to almost a whisper. Rule 8. If you ever see the district steward, he wears a name tag that just says Grange. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't run. Don't breathe too loud. And if he asks you a question, answer honestly. Always. She let go of my arm. My skin burned where her fingers had pressed. I swallowed hard. This is a joke, right? Some kind of hazing ritual? Miles finally turned from the drive-through window. His face was gray in the buzzing light. His lips cracked as though he hadn't drunk water in days. Ask the last trainee if it's a joke, he said flatly. If you can still hear her screaming. I froze. Loretta clapped her hands together, forcing a smile. Wonderful. You're all set. Welcome to the night shift. At exactly 10:59, the day crew hustled out the back door, leaving me with Miles and Sherry. The store felt colder, emptier. Though the fryers still hummed and the menu board still glowed bright red and yellow. At 11 p.m. sharp, the front lights dimmed on their own. The fryer dinged once, though nothing was inside. And I realized with a sinking feeling that my first night at the McDonald's rural store had officially begun. The first hour dragged like wet sand. I stood behind the register, trying to look. Useful while Miles worked the grill with a speed that didn't seem possible for someone so hollow-eyed. Sherry handled the counter, her back rigid, her eyes never straying far from the glass doors at the front. No customers came in. Not one. The glowing sign buzzed and sputtered above the empty lot. The silence between fryer hums felt heavier than the walls. Slow nights are good nights, Miles muttered without looking at me. He flipped a patty, though I hadn't seen him put one down. Remember that. I nodded, pretending not to notice the way the meat sizzled too loudly for such. A small patty, the fat spitting black instead of clear. At exactly 12:14 a.m., the headset buzzed. I jumped, Miles didn't. He shoved the greasy headset at me. Rule 5. First buzz is yours. My hand shook as I pressed the button. Welcome to McDonald's. How can I help you? Static filled my ears first, like someone dragging sandpaper across a microphone. Then a voice, flat and wet, seeped through. Harvest box. I glanced at Miles, panicked. What? Just say yes, he whispered sharply. One harvest. Box, I croaked into the mic. Anything else? The voice hissed. Extra husks. I relayed the order, not daring to ask questions. Miles moved to the freezer, except he didn't open the standard chrome door. Instead, he pressed his palm to the iron-bound cellar door I'd seen earlier. It groaned, unlocking by itself. A breath of damp, earthy air rushed out, carrying the smell of soil and rot. He disappeared inside. Sherry stiffened but didn't move, to stop him. Don't watch, she murmured. It's better if you don't. But of course I watched. Miles returned holding a cardboard box. Inside was corn. At least it looked like corn. Pale, huskless ears glistened in the fluorescent. Light, each kernel a milky, pulsing pearl. He grabbed a handful of shriveled husks from a separate bin, threw them on top, then closed the lid. He thrust it at me. Drive-through window. Don't look at the driver. My stomach turned. I slid open the window. A battered farm truck idled, outside. The cab was pitch black, darker than shadows should be. Two gloved hands extended, palms up. I set the box down. The hands seized it, dragging it into the void. No money exchanged. No words. The truck rolled off into the fields without headlights, disappearing like it had never been there. My throat burned. What was... Sherry cut me off with a glare. Rule 4. Don't ask. I wanted to run then. But where? Miles must have read my thoughts. Shift doesn't end until 7. If you leave, it follows. What follows? I whispered. Neither answered. At 12:46, the fryer dinged. Empty. The sound cut through me sharper than the buzz of the headset. That's you? Sherry said flatly, never looking away from the front. Doors. I moved toward the fryer. The timer blinked red, though no basket hung in the oil. The air smelled different, like rust and rain on hot asphalt. I hesitated. Turn it off, Miles barked. I reached out, flipping the switch. The ding stopped instantly. The silence afterward wasn't normal silence. It was thick, expectant. Something unseen pressed against the windows, testing, waiting. Then it faded. I backed away, heart hammering. At 1:32, another buzz. Answer, Miles ordered, thrusting the headset toward me. I pressed the button. My voice cracked. McDonald's rural store. What can I get you? A pause. Then, almost childlike. Milk. White. From the red cow. Sherry's face tightened. She hurried to the cooler, pulling out a glass jar. It sloshed thickly, though. The liquid inside wasn't quite milk. It shimmered faintly, the way gasoline does in sunlight. She placed it in a paper bag and shoved it at me. Window. Don't sniff it. Don't spill. I slid the bag out. A figure leaned in from the darkness. Tall, too tall, with shoulders hunched to fit the window. Its face was hidden beneath a wide straw hat, but I glimpsed the mouth, stitched closed, seams black and oozing. The smell of soil and decay gusted in with its breath. It took the bag gently, like a parent receiving a child, then vanished into the night. I froze by the window until Sherry yanked me back. First night's the worst. Get used to it. How? Can anyone get used to this? She didn't answer. By 2:20 a.m., the store was still empty. The lot silent except for the hum of insects in the fields. Sherry checked her watch. Tense. Get ready, she said. Rule 3. She stood by the door, hand on the lock. Miles whispered under his breath, words I didn't recognize. Maybe a prayer, maybe something worse. At 2:27 exactly, the front. Doors rattled. A man in a suit stood there, middle-aged. Perfectly ordinary, like a salesman stopping by after a long drive. He smiled and knocked politely. I'm sorry, folks, he said, voice warm. Just need a cup of coffee before I get back on the road. Every instinct screamed to help him. He looked normal, human. He looked like me. But Sherry's face was white as paper. We're closed, she said, voice sharp, twisting the lock at the precise second. The man's smile faltered. His eyes flicked to me. You're new, he said, tilting his head unnaturally far. You don't know the rules yet, do you? My chest went cold. I hadn't told him I was new. He pressed his hand to the glass. The skin left a wet, dark imprint, like tar. Open the door, he murmured. Just this once. Behind me, Miles hissed, Don't move! The clock above the register ticked over to 2:28. The man's smile snapped wide, stretching too far, teeth too sharp. His voice deepened, echoing unnaturally in the empty store. "She would have let me in," he snarled, pointing at me with one dripping finger. The last one did. Then, as the second hand swept past, he vanished. The wet print faded from the glass. The store was silent again. I couldn't breathe. Miles finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Congratulations. You just survived your first lock." The clock read 2:45 a.m., and my nerves hadn't settled since the thing in the suit vanished from the glass. I busied myself wiping counters that weren't dirty, my hands trembling against the laminate. The fryer hissed, the lights buzzed. But the building felt alive somehow, like the walls were listening. Miles worked the grill with his back to me. He hadn't spoken since the lock. Sherry paced the lobby, muttering under her breath as though rehearsing lines. Every so often she'd check the front doors again, as if expecting them to swing open anyway. Finally, I whispered, "What happens if the doors don't get locked on time?" Neither answered. I pressed. "That man, whatever he was, what would have happened if I opened it?" Sherry snapped her head toward me, eyes sharp as broken glass. "Rule 6. No one inside after lock, ever. Don't ask again." I shut my mouth, but the silence afterward felt even worse. At 3:03, the fryer dinged again, empty. Sherry stopped pacing. "Not you this time," she said, voice thin. She pointed at Miles. He didn't move. "It's your turn," she said again. Miles just stared at the fryer, shoulders stiff. "I did it last night. You'll do it tonight, too. I'm not going near it again." I watched the standoff in confusion. The ding grew louder, faster, more frantic, until it felt like my skull was vibrating. Without another word, Miles stomped to the fryer and slapped the switch. The noise cut off. And then, a knock. 3 sharp raps on the back door. Sherry's face, drained of color. "It heard you," Miles cursed under his breath. He backed away slowly. "Don't open it. Don't answer." The knock came again, louder this time, rattling the metal. My mouth went dry. "Shouldn't we—" "No," they said together, voices cracking. The knocks turned into pounding, then scraping, like nails dragging down steel. I edged closer, despite myself. Something inside me wanted to look, to see what begged entry. Sherry caught my arm, nails digging into my skin. "Don't." Curiosity kills faster than hunger here. The pounding stopped. For a second, the silence rang. Then a voice came from the other side. Low, wet, distorted. "New one. I know you hear me." My blood froze. "How does it know?" Miles cut me off. "They always know." The voice pressed. Harder, sliding into my skull. "You don't belong. Let me in and I'll show you the way out." The urge to reach for the handle was almost unbearable, like invisible fingers pushing mine toward it. Sherry's grip held me steady. "Rule 6, she whispered fiercely. "Repeat it." "No one inside after lock," I whispered back. The pressure eased. The voice laughed, a horrible bubbling sound, and faded. I collapsed against the counter, shaking. "Congratulations," Miles muttered, his face gray. "That was your first temptation." At 3:30, the drive-thru buzzer screamed. Not a short buzz this time. A long, droning wail that rattled the headset on its hook. Sherry and Miles exchanged a look that sent panic crawling under my skin. "That's for you," Miles said, sliding the headset across the counter. "No," I said immediately. Not again. You answer it. He shook his head. Not how it works. First long buzz belongs to the new hire. Sherry leaned close, her whisper harsh in my ear. Whatever you hear, keep it short. Do not volunteer anything. The buzzing wouldn't stop until I picked it up. Hands trembling, I slipped on the headset. Welcome to Mcdonald's rural store, I said weakly. What can I— Good evening. The voice was smooth, deep, almost elegant. Not static-ridden, not garbled. Too clear. You're doing well. My breath caught. Who is this? You may call me Grange. The name on my tongue felt heavy, wrong. I oversee this district. I like to meet new associates on their third hour. I tried to glance at Sherry, but she only shook her head violently, eyes wide. Do you enjoy the work so far? The voice asked. I swallowed hard. It's different. A chuckle hummed through the earpiece. Honesty. Good. Some lie, some pretend this is just a job. They don't last long. Static crackled. Beneath it, I swore I heard something moving, like footsteps pacing in the fields. You will serve here until dawn, the voice continued. If you follow the rules, you will be safe. If you break them— A pause. You join the menu. The connection cut. The air warmed, like a door had closed. I yanked off the headset, heart slamming against my ribs. Sherry looked at me with a strange mix of pity and respect. He spoke to you. That means you're marked now. Marked? Miles finally turned, from the grill. His eyes looked darker than before, pupils swallowed by black. It means you're part of the store, whether you like it or not. The rest of the hour passed in uneasy silence. The fryer hissed, the lights flickered, but nothing else came. When the clock finally clicked to 4 a.m., I almost believed the worst was over until I heard it. A faint scratching from the bathroom stalls. Slow, deliberate, then a whisper. My name. Come here. The scratching grew louder, echoing through the tiled hallway like claws across bone. Froze outside the bathroom, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. The flickering fluorescent above cast a sickly pallor across the door, and for a moment I thought I saw the surface of the wood pulse, as if something inside was breathing. Don't. Answer it! Sherry hissed from the counter. Her voice was sharp, but it quavered underneath. Miles didn't even look up. First night always brings the stalls, he muttered. It'll test you. Test me. The phrase gnawed at my nerves. The whisper came again, more insistent. My name. Drawn out, warping in pitch. Come here, please. You know me. My hand twitched toward the handle before I caught myself. Who is it? I croaked before I could stop myself. Silence. Then a faint sob, wet and uneven. It's Ellie, the voice whimpered. I trained here before you. Loretta said you'd be different. Please, open the door. I've been in here so long. Ellie. My stomach dropped. Loretta had mentioned turnover, hadn't she? Too many employees quitting, but none of the files she gave me listed an Ellie. Don't talk to it, Sherry barked. That's how it pulls you closer. But the sobbing from inside the stall grew louder. Something in the tone, desperation, humanity, clawed at my chest. What if there really was a girl trapped inside? What if the rules were wrong? I inched forward despite myself, the tiled floor icy beneath my sneakers. New one. Miles's voice carried no emotion. Repeat the rule. My lips were dry. If you hear knocking from the stalls, don't answer. Don't speak." The sobbing cut off instantly. Silence pressed against my ears, thick and heavy. Then a laugh, low at first, then rising. The voice twisted, shedding its fragility. "Smart little parrot? Do you think repeating words will save you?" Knuckles rapped hard against the metal stall. Once, twice, thrice. Each hit reverberated through my chest. The lock on the stall door jiggled. Metal squealed. Slowly, the door began to inch open. I staggered back. "It's opening!" "Don't look inside," Sherry screamed, but I looked. For a split second, the stall gaped wide enough for me to glimpse a figure crouched low, skin gray and stretched tight, eyes black voids that dripped like ink. Its grin split too wide, revealing rows of teeth that spiraled into the throat. The door slammed shut. The lights above me popped, plunging the hallway into near darkness. I stumbled back toward the counter. My breath came ragged, each inhale frosting in the air. Sherry grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were cold as steel. "You looked, didn't you?" I nodded, trembling. Miles finally turned from the grill. His face was blank, almost resigned. "Then, it knows you now. It will keep calling every night." I wanted to scream at them, to ask why no one told me this job came with things in stalls, voices that knew my name. But before the words could leave me, the bathroom door rattled violently. The voice roared now, shaking the walls. "Let me out!" The air thickened, heavy with the stench of sewage and rot. The exit signs flickered red, pulsing in time with the pounding. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The bathroom fell silent. Sherry released me, her hand trembling. "It can't leave the stalls, not unless you invite it." Miles's voice was low. "You came close." I leaned on the counter, gasping for air. My reflection in the glass doors across the lobby caught my eye. My skin looked paler than it had at the start of my shift. The color leached out. My eyes glinted faintly, reflecting light unnaturally. "Why me?" I whispered. "Why do they know my name?" Neither answered. At 4:18 a.m., the drive-through buzzer shrieked again. This time short and sharp. Miles shoved the headset toward me. "Go on, you're marked now. He'll want to hear your voice." I shook my head. "I can't. Not after—" "Answer," Sherry snapped, "or we all pay." My hand shook as I pressed the button. "Welcome to Mcdonald's rural store." The line crackled. Then the same voice I'd heard earlier. Smooth, deliberate, too calm for the chaos I'd just endured. "You did well with the stall. Grange. I watched you," he said. "You resisted. That pleases me." I swallowed hard, unable to speak. "You'll be tested again. Each rule, each night, survive, and you might earn a place here beyond flesh. Fail." A pause. "And you'll feed what waits in the cellar." The connection went dead. By the time 5 a.m. rolled around, the store was oppressively silent. The fryer hummed, but nothing dinged. The doors rattled only once, lightly, like a breeze had pressed them. Even Sherry seemed rattled, her pacing, more frantic than before. When the clock finally ticked toward dawn, relief flooded me. But it carried a heavy shadow, because now I knew two things with certainty. One, the rules were real. Two, something in that bathroom stall knew my name and it wouldn't stop calling. The sun rose eventually, though I barely noticed. At 6:55 a.m., the day crew shuffled in with tired smiles and steaming coffee cups, oblivious to what the night had been. Miles peeled off his headset and walked straight out the back without a word. Sherry stayed only long enough to exchange a brittle smile with Loretta before disappearing into the break room. I followed them, too shaken to drive home. Just yet. The break room was small, tucked behind the fryer station. 2 dented lockers, a round plastic table, and a corkboard cluttered with faded safety posters. Miles leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his eyes half closed. Sherry sat with her, back to me, hunched over a styrofoam cup of coffee that steamed faintly red. When she spoke, it wasn't to me. It was to the wall. She looked into the stall. Miles's eyelids fluttered. Then it will hound her. Every night. I clenched my fists. I didn't choose to look. It forced me. You chose, Sherry snapped, spinning to face me. Her face looked different under the buzzing fluorescent, paler, veins dark under her skin. Every choice matters here. Every mistake adds weight. I wanted to argue, but Loretta entered then, her expression carved from stone. Enough, she said flatly. She's still breathing. That means she's useful. She turned to me. Tonight, you'll need to see where the food comes from. If you're going to last, you must learn how to gather from the cellar. A chill slid down my spine. The cellar. The iron-bound door. Miles shifted uncomfortably. She's not ready. Loretta's gaze cut sharp. Ready or not, Grange will demand it. Better she knows before she's ordered to do it alone. I went home after that, but the images followed me. The stall door, the ink-black eyes, the voice. My reflection in the glass, paler than it should have been. Sleep refused to come. By 10 p.m., my body felt hollow, but dread still pushed me back into the lot, back to the glowing arches. At 10:59, the day crew filed out quickly, eyes downcast, as if they couldn't bear to look at us. The cellar door waited. Loretta herself led me this time. The keys jingled in her hand as she stopped before the iron-bound wood, its hinges swollen with rust. She pressed her palm against the lock. The air grew colder. With a groan, the door swung inward. A draft of damp earth and rot crawled across my skin. Don't speak when you're down there, Loretta said. Don't stray from the lantern and don't pick anything that doesn't call to you, understand? I swallowed hard. No, but I'll try. Miles shoved a lantern into my hand. The flame inside flickered green. Follow the stairs. Grab what you're told. Get out fast. Sherry muttered something under her breath. Another one fed to the dark. Then Loretta pushed me forward. The stairs spiraled down, damp and uneven, leading into blackness. The lantern's glow licked the stone walls, revealing etchings, scratches that might have been words once, but were gouged too deep to read. My footfalls echoed like I was walking through a cavern rather than beneath a restaurant. At the bottom, the cellar widened. I froze. Rows of shelves lined the chamber, but they didn't hold food. They held jars. Dozens, maybe hundreds of glass jars filled with things that writhed faintly, suspended in liquid that shimmered faintly under the lantern. Some jars held pale organs that twitched. Others held clusters of teeth. A few contained what looked like tiny dolls, their cloth bodies breathing as though alive. A table stood in the center. On it rested a burlap sack. The sack moved. My breath caught. From inside came a faint voice, muffled but unmistakable. "Help me!" I stumbled back, lantern shaking. The sack writhed harder, straining against twine. Then another voice came from the shelves, whispered through glass, "Break it. Free us." The jars rattled. The sack twisted violently, my heart hammered. Loretta's warning echoed in my head. Don't pick anything that doesn't call to you. But the voices were calling. I clutched the lantern tighter, trying to ignore them. This isn't real, I muttered. It can't be real. The shelves rattled harder. A jar toppled, shattering across the floor. Its contents, a pale hand, severed at the wrist but still twitching, crawled toward me, fingers dragging across stone. I screamed and kicked it away. The lantern flickered, and then, through the chaos, one jar glowed brighter than the rest. It pulsed faintly, drawing my gaze. Inside floated an ear of corn, its kernels milky white, pulsing like tiny hearts. The harvest box. I grabbed it nearly, dropping the lantern in my haste, and bolted for the stairs. The voices rose to a shriek. The sack thrashed violently. A dozen jars shattered, spilling their contents across the floor. Shapes squirmed in the half-light, skittering after me. I ran, up the stairs, 2 at a time, lungs burning. The lantern flame nearly went out, guttering. In the draft. I burst through the cellar door. Loretta slammed it shut, twisting the lock until the air grew warm again. My hands shook as I shoved the jar at her. Her eyes gleamed. Good. It called to you. She handed it off to Miles, who cradled it like something sacred, I gasped, voice cracking. What the hell are those things? What's in those jars? Loretta's smile was thin. Ingredients. You've just taken your first step in learning what we serve here, Sherry muttered darkly. Or what we become. The friar dinged in. The distance. Loretta's expression sharpened. Back to work. Customers are waiting. And as I wiped my shaking hands on my apron, one thought lodged like a splinter in my mind. Those voices hadn't been random. They knew my name, too. And one of them had sounded exactly like me. The jar from the cellar was gone by the time I returned to the counter. Miles had whisked it into the kitchen, handling it with the same care you'd give a newborn. And Sherry had locked the cellar door with more force than necessary, but the voices from below clung to me. Even as I took up my post by the register, I swore I could still hear them, faint whispers echoing at the edges of my skull. The fryer hissed. The soda machine burbled. And then, at 12:52 a.m., the headset buzzed. A short burst this time. Answer. It, Sherry said, her tone flat, resigned. I pressed the button with shaking fingers. McDonald's rural store, how can I help you tonight? The reply was immediate. Cornmeal, salt, brewed hot with marrow. Static swallowed the words, but the meaning was clear. I glanced back at Miles, expecting him to move. He already had a pot waiting on the stove. Without hesitation, he poured the pulsing kernels from the jar I'd carried up earlier, added a fistful of salt from a tin blackened with grease, then cracked a bone lengthwise and dropped its contents in. The smell that rose wasn't food. It was soil. Fresh grave dirt boiled into steam. He filled a paper cup and set it on a tray, sliding it toward me. Window, he said simply. I hesitated. My skin prickled with dread, but my hands moved on their own. The drive-through window slid open with a groan. At first, I thought no one was there. The lot was empty. The night stretched wide and silent. Then movement. Something rose from the ground itself. A figure, long and thin, as if assembled from stalks, of corn and stitched together with wire, dragged itself into the glow of the menu board. Its face was a burlap sack stretched over a skull, with holes cut where eyes should be, except the eyes weren't human. They gleamed like wet seeds, white and swollen. It extended one arm through the window, the fingers jointed with bent nails. Shoved the tray into its grip, trying not to gag as soil and beetles spilled onto the counter from its sleeve. The creature lifted the cup to its burlap mouth and tilted. Steam rose. The smell of marrow filled the air. Then it leaned closer. The empty holes where its ears should have been twitched, and it spoke in my voice. You looked into the stall. I stumbled back. What? Sherry was already moving, grabbing my arm. Shut the window, she barked, but the creature's seed eyes glowed. We see you now. You belong below, just like the others. The air grew cold, the window frosting with a thin sheet of ice. I yanked it shut just as its hand scraped the frame, leaving behind grooves in the metal. When the window sealed, the lights above flickered violently, then steadied. The lot was empty again. Sherry's grip on my arm was like iron. Never let them finish talking, she hissed. If you listen too long, they'll crawl inside your head. They'll make you open the door for them. My chest heaved, lungs desperate for air. What was that? Miles answered without looking up from the grill. One of the regulars. His voice was hollow, stripped of anything human. They always come back for those who slip. The next hour blurred into a haze of orders, each one worse than the last. A burger wrapped in skin instead of paper, fries that writhed faintly in the container, a milkshake that steamed though it was ice cold to the touch. Every time I asked why, Sherry glared at me, and Miles said nothing. By 2:10 a.m., I was ready to collapse. Then the fryer dinged again. Empty. The sound pierced the store, relentless. Miles stiffened. Not me this time. Sherry's face twisted. I did it last night. It's hers now. They both looked at me. My heart pounded. What do you mean mine? The fryer doesn't pick at random, Sherry said quietly. It rings for who? It wants. The ding grew louder, sharper, like knives slamming against metal. I swallowed hard, stepped forward, and flipped the switch. The noise cut off. For a heartbeat, the silence was absolute. Then, a shriek tore through the building, high and metallic, as though something vast had just scraped its claws across the roof. The lights pulsed red, every exit sign glowing like a heartbeat. Miles cursed, slamming the grill shut. It's here. Before I could ask what he meant, the front doors rattled violently. The locks held, but the glass bent inward, as though pressed by enormous hands. Sherry grabbed a fire extinguisher, her eyes wide. Grange isn't stopping it this time. The doors bent again, cracking along the frame. A sound like grinding metal filled the store, and then, with a screech, the hinges gave way. The doors flew open. The figure that stepped inside wasn't a man. It wasn't anything that should have existed. Its body was stitched from uniforms, stained red and yellow. The golden arches burned into its chest like a brand. Its face was pale, waxy, but its mouth stretched ear to ear, lined with hundreds of teeth that chattered like clattering bones. It smiled at me. The fryer dinged again, though I hadn't touched it, and the thing spoke. You're next on the menu. The thing filled the lobby, towering where the glass doors used to be. Fluorescent light shimmered off its waxy skin. Its uniform was wrong. Patchwork Mcdonalds colors sewn together, grease-stained and slick with something darker. The golden arches on its chest pulsed faintly, like a second heart. Miles shoved me behind the counter. Stay low. His voice cracked, but his eyes never left the creature. Sherry stepped forward with the fire extinguisher, gripping it like a bat. Her jaw clenched tight. "You're not supposed to be here, not tonight." The thing tilted its head. When it spoke, its voice rattled through my bones, deep and syrupy, like hot oil poured into ice water. "Rules bend when hunger grows." Its grin widened until the corners of its mouth split, tearing skin, black fluid dripping down its chin. The fryer dinged. The sound stabbed through the air, shrill, insistent. The monster's seed-colored eyes locked on me. She hears it. She's mine. I shook my head violently, backing against the counter. "No!" Miles darted forward, brandishing a long kitchen knife. He slashed at the thing's arm, but the blade sank into fabric and stuck, as if caught in glue. The monster swung, flinging him across the lobby. He hit the tile with a thud, sliding into a booth. Sherry screamed and lunged with the extinguisher. She slammed it into the creature's head. Frost sprayed across its face. It staggered, shrieking, the sound like static tearing across every speaker at once. But it didn't fall. It turned its grin toward Sherry. She froze, eyes wide. "Oh no!" In one motion, the thing seized her arm and bent it backward at an angle. No human limb should bend. Bone cracked. She shrieked, dropping the extinguisher. "Stop!" I screamed. My voice felt small in the cavernous dark. The creature's head swiveled toward me. Too fast. Too sharp. It stepped closer, dragging its leg in a jerking motion. Every step left black stains on the floor, like tar sizzling under invisible heat. I scrambled backward, nearly toppling the register. The fryer dinged again, louder, faster, and then the headset on the counter lit up, glowing with a sickly green. Sherry gasped, clutching her twisted arm. "Put it on, now!" "What?" "Rule 5, she barked through clenched teeth. "Answer the buzz, or it takes you." The creature loomed over me, drool or oil dripping onto the tile. The headset wailed. With no choice, I snatched it up and pressed it to my ear. Static erupted, then a voice slid through, smooth, calm, familiar. "Stand down," it said. "This one is not yours." Grange. The monster froze, its grin faltering. "She is marked," Grange continued, voice resonant. "Her test is not yet finished." The monster's chest heaved, the arches glowing brighter. Its voice rumbled like stone grinding. "Hungry?" "You will wait," Grange said, his words like iron bars clanging shut. "Or be stripped of your claim." A silence heavier than air filled the room. The monster's grin shrank, lips pulling taut over endless teeth. Finally, it released Sherry, who crumpled to the floor clutching her arm. It turned toward the ruined doorway. But before stepping out, it fixed its eyes on me. "You can't hide in rules forever," it hissed. "Soon, you'll serve me instead." Then, it bent, folding into itself, collapsing into a puddle of black sludge that seeped across the threshold. By the time it was gone, only the shattered glass and a scorched smell remained. I tore the headset off, gasping. "What the hell was that?" Sherry struggled upright, teeth gritted against pain. "A collector!" Miles groaned from the booth, dragging himself up with one arm. His other hung limp. "It hunts those who slip. That's why the rules exist. To keep it out." But it came in anyway. Sherry's eyes were glassy, but her voice was hard. "Because you looked into the stall. You bent the line. It smelled weakness." I staggered back, my throat tight. "So it's my fault?" "No," Miles said, limping forward. "It would have come eventually. They always do. But Grange, He spared you. That means something." Sherry let out a bitter laugh, then hissed in pain as she pressed her arm to her chest. "Spared or marked. Either way, you're bound tighter now." The friar dinged once, soft, almost mocking. I flinched. Miles pressed his palm against the friar switch until the sound cut out. He stared at me, eyes darker than before. "Next time, he won't protect you. Next time, you'll have to make the deal yourself." "The deal?" Sherry's laugh was dry, hollow. "Every night worker makes one. Some choose sooner, some later. But Grange doesn't let anyone keep their soul for free." Her words sank in like oil through paper. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Because outside, in the dark fields, something moved. A shape tall as the silo, pale as bone, drifting between the corn rows, watching. And for the first time, I realized surviving the shift wasn't enough. I wasn't just fighting monsters. I was being prepared for something worse. The shattered front doors were boarded up by the time the day crew arrived, as if nothing had happened. Loretta supervised with the same brisk calm, waving contractors in and out. She never once looked at me, though her hands trembled when she poured her morning coffee. By the time I left, the images clung to me like a second skin, the collector's endless teeth, the sound of Sherry's arm snapping, the tar stains on the tile. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bathroom stall cracking open. When night came again, I almost didn't return. Almost. But the memory of Sherry's warning echoed too clearly. If you leave, it follows. So at 10:58 p.m., I found myself back, under the buzzing arches, apron stiff around my neck, staring at the boarded doors. Sherry's arm was bound in a splint now, the sleeve of her uniform cut to accommodate the swelling. Her face was gray, but she said nothing about it. Miles was quieter than usual, which I hadn't thought possible. Loretta gathered us in the break room before the shift. Her gaze swept over me, hard and calculating. "You saw it?" she said simply. I nodded, throat dry. "Then you need to understand something." She tapped the corkboard behind her, where the faded safety posters curled at the corners. Pinned. Beneath them, hidden until she pulled them free, were photographs, 11 in total. Each showed an employee in uniform, standing outside the store, all smiling, all young. Beneath every photo was a name, and beneath every name, a date. None of them lasted more than 3 weeks. Loretta's finger landed on the last one. A girl no older than me, her hair tied in a ponytail, grin wide but uncertain. The name scrawled under it, Ellie, the sobbing voice from the stall. She didn't follow the rules, Loretta said coldly. She thought she could bend them, cheat them. Now she's part of the stalls. My stomach nodded. So the voices, they really are former employees. Miles's voice rasped from the corner. His eyes never left the floor. I stared at the photos, bile burning my throat. So all of them. Loretta pinned the photos back under the posters, hiding the faces again. The rules don't exist to scare you. They exist to keep the worst of it out, to protect us. The collector, the stalls, the cellar, they're pieces of a larger hunger. If we serve it, if we obey, it leaves us alive. If we fail... Sherry shifted, wincing as she adjusted her splint. It eats, and it doesn't care if you're staff or customer. I couldn't tear my eyes from the corkboard. The images seared themselves into my brain. 11 smiles, 11 names, 11 lives consumed, and I was next on that wall. The shift began as always, though the boarded front doors made the store. feel even more like a tomb. At 12:07 a.m., the fryer dinged. Empty. I forced myself forward before either of them could move. It's mine. It's better if I do it. Miles's brow furrowed, but he said nothing. I flipped the switch. The sound cut off, but instead of silence, a whisper drifted through the vents. "You'll look good on the wall." The hair on my arms bristled. I stepped back quickly. At 12:45, the headset buzzed. I answered. My voice barely worked. "McDonald's rural store. What can I get you?" Static hissed. Then faintly, "Happy Meal, toy, her picture." I froze. "What?" The voice crackled. "Toy, her photo, Ellie's?" I dropped the headset. Sherry's face went pale. "Don't listen. Don't you dare." But the voice kept coming, leaking out of the speakers themselves. "Ellie, Ellie, Ellie!" The fryer dinged again, joining the chorus. Miles grabbed the headset and barked into it. "Denied. Rule 4 still holds. You'll get what's on the tray." The static screamed, loud enough to rattle the windows. Then silence. By 1:30, I couldn't. Stand still. The air in the store felt too heavy, pressing against my lungs. I slipped into the hallway toward the bathrooms before I could stop myself. The stalls waited, silent. I stared at the third one, the one that had opened before. My reflection in the mirror above the sink was pale, my eyes too bright. I leaned, closer, and then I saw it. In the corner of the mirror's glass, faint but undeniable, was another reflection. Standing just behind me, Ellie, her face gray, lips sewn shut, black liquid seeping down her chin. I spun, but the hallway was empty. Stall door creaked. "3 knocks! Please!" a muffled voice begged. "Burn the pictures. It's the only way." The hair on my neck rose. I staggered back toward the lobby, breath ragged. But when I looked toward the break room, I saw Loretta pinning another photograph to the corkboard. This time it wasn't Ellie. It was me. I couldn't breathe. The photograph was unmistakable. My own face pinned to the corkboard, uniform crisp, smile brittle. The date scrawled underneath wasn't today, though. It was 3 days from now. I stumbled forward, pointing at it. "What the hell is that? How do you already have this?" Loretta didn't flinch. She pressed the tack in deeper, flattening the edges of the picture with her palm. "Every hire has their date. It's set the moment you walk through the door." Miles avoided my eyes. Sherry winced, clutching her splinted arm tighter. "No," I snapped. "That's not fate. That's some sick game you're all playing." Loretta finally turned, her smile thin, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "Game? You think this is a choice? You think any of us chose this?" She jabbed her finger at the board. "Those dates aren't predictions. They're expiration marks. The store writes them, Grange enforces them, and we obey." The fryer dinged from the kitchen, sharp and mocking. I shook my head, refusing to accept it. "Then I'll burn it. I'll tear the whole board down." I lunged for the corkboard. Loretta's hand shot out, iron strong despite her age, gripping my wrist hard enough to bruise. Her eyes bored into mine. "Touch that board, and you'll see just how fast the collector comes. Rules keep us alive. Rules keep us hidden." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You think the collector is the worst of it? There are older hungers, deeper ones. This place is only a mouthpiece." My breath came shallow. "Then why stay? Why keep working here if you know it ends the same?" Miles finally spoke, his voice dull and distant. "Because leaving isn't leaving. The rules follow. You break contract, they collect. And there are worse places than this. The room swam. I stared again at my photograph, the 3-day deadline. I couldn't just sit here waiting for the store to eat me. I had to act. By 12:20 a.m., the shift blurred back into routine. Orders trickled in, strange, impossible things that Miles prepared without expression. Sherry stayed by the counter, pale but vigilant, while Loretta retreated to the office. I bussed empty tables just to keep moving. Every time I passed the corkboard, my eyes caught on my face smiling back at me. The fryer dinged again. Empty. I ignored it, clenching my rag until my knuckles went white. Miles barked from the grill. "Switch it off." I didn't move. Sherry, cursed, dropped the register and sprinted to the fryer. She slammed the switch down just as the ding warped into a screech. The air dropped 10 degrees. "You want to die early?" she snapped at me. I stared at her. "You all act like there's no way out. But what if Ellie was right? What if the pictures are the anchor? Burn them. Break the cycle." Miles froze, his spatula hovering mid-air. Sherry's face twisted, but it wasn't disbelief. It was fear. "She told you that?" Sherry whispered. "In the stalls?" I admitted. "She begged me to burn them." Miles shook his head. "It's bait. That's what they do. They whisper half-truths until you open the door. Don't listen." But even as he said it, his voice cracked. He didn't fully believe it himself. At 1:03, the headset buzzed. I answered, my hands clammy against the plastic. "McDonald's rural store. How can I help you?" Static hissed. Then Grange's voice, smooth as oil. "You've seen your mark. My—" Stomach lurched. "That photo. Why me? Why 3 days?" "You misunderstand," Grange purred. "It isn't punishment. It is invitation." Invitation to what? To join us. The rules are trials, not chains. Survive long enough and you belong. Fail and you feed the store. Simple. My voice shook. "And if I refuse both? If I destroy the rules?" For the first time, Grange laughed. A sound like glass breaking under pressure. "Destroy the rules? Clever child. The rules are the store. They bind the mouths, direct the hunger. Tear them away and you won't free yourself. You'll feed everything." The headset went dead. By 2:15, my mind was a storm. Every sound, the fryer, the soda machine, the hum of the neon sign, sounded like ticking clocks, counting down to my photograph's date. I slipped into the break room again. Loretta was gone. The corkboard glowed faintly in the dim light, the photos whispering at the edges of my mind. I reached for mine. Sherry's voice cut through the dark. "Don't." I jumped. She leaned in the doorway, her splinted arm cradled against her chest. "You'll damn us all," she said. I glared at her. "So what? I just wait to be eaten? I just wait for that collector thing to drag me away?" Her jaw tightened. She stepped closer. "You think you're the first to want to burn them?" Ellie tried. 3 others before her, too. Every time the photos regrew. Every time the store took them faster. I hesitated. "Then why did Ellie beg me?" Sherry's eyes darkened. "Because once you're inside the rules, you'll say anything to trick someone else into taking your place. Even lies sound like salvation when you're trapped." Her words sank in like a stone in my chest. But when I looked back at my photograph, pale and smiling with that cursed date beneath, I knew one thing. Lie or not, I couldn't just wait. At 2:27, the lock ritual began. Sherry braced herself by the door, Miles muttering under his breath. I stayed back, watching the clock tick down. The doors rattled. A shadow pressed against the boards. A voice, deep and furious, roared, "Open now!" The boards bent inward, nails screeching. Sherry twisted the lock at the exact second. The shadow shrieked, fading back into the fields. Silence returned, but this time, the silence didn't feel like safety. It felt like waiting, because no matter what Sherry said, no matter what Miles muttered, I knew this wasn't about surviving another night anymore. It was about breaking the rules before they broke me. By the 10th night, fear had dulled into something sharper, defiance. I was done being told that expiration was inevitable. Done staring at my own smiling face on the corkboard, waiting for a date etched in ink to dictate my death. If the rules were chains, then maybe chains could be broken. I arrived early, just after 10, and found the break room empty. The corkboard seemed to pulse in the dim light, photos whispering at the edges of my mind. I reached for mine again, fingertips brushing the tack. Before I could pull, Loretta's voice hissed behind me. "I warned you!" I spun. She stood in the doorway, her pressed uniform pristine, but her eyes were too bright, reflecting. "Light like an animal's. You think you're different," she said, stepping closer. "So did Ellie, so did the rest. Do you know what their rebellion bought us? Stronger locks, more mouths to feed." I swallowed hard. Then why not burn the whole place down? Why keep feeding it? Her smile was brittle. "Because fire doesn't kill hunger. It only makes it hungrier." The shift began like always. Miles at the grill, Sherry at the counter, me with the headset. The boarded doors groaned in the night wind. At 12:22 a.m., the fryer dinged. I stared at it. "No," I whispered. Sherry stiffened. "Flip the switch." I shook my head. "Not this time." The ding grew louder, shriller. The walls vibrated. "Dow, it!" Miles barked, panic cracking his voice. Instead, I yanked the plug from the wall. Sparks snapped. The fryer went silent. For a heartbeat, the store breathed relief. Then the lights died. Darkness swallowed us whole. The emergency lights flickered on, red and dim, casting everything in a hellish glow. From the kitchen vents came the sound of scraping. Nails, hooves, something dragging itself closer. Miles slammed the grill shut, backing away. "You've doomed us," Sherry's voice shook. "You broke the rule." The air pressure shifted, doors groaned. The cellar lock rattled violently, iron squealing like it was being torn apart from the inside. And then the headset buzzed. I snatched it up, desperate. "Grange." His voice slid through, calm as ever. "Defiance. Bold. Foolish." "I won't play anymore," I spat. "You can't keep us like this. We're not food." Grange chuckled, low and patient. "Not food. Not yet. Rules were mercy. Without them, you see the store's true nature. As if on cue, the boards over the front doors splintered outward. Not in, like before. Out, as though something had pushed its way free from inside.